Everyone knows the Hindenburg exploded, but almost no one knows what the last survivor confessed before he died. For 77 years, he stayed silent, signing papers, avoiding reporters, keeping the truth buried. But on his deathbed, he finally revealed what he witnessed that night. Passengers who weren't who they said they were. Secret agents on board. A plan to destroy the ship. And a cover-up that reached far higher than anyone imagined. His final words changed everything. The world's largest aircraft, the Hindenburg, was preparing to depart for New Jersey. Today, no living witnesses remain. The last survivor passed away in 2014, taking with him a secret he kept hidden for his entire life. Long before he revealed it, the Hindenburg was already a symbol of ambition and tragedy. Germany had dreamed of conquering the sky, and by 1936, its engineers finally built a craft bigger than anything that had ever flown. Under the direction of Dr. Hugo Eckener, the massive LZ-129 airship rose inside the giant shed at Friedrichshafen. When it finally rolled out, its size didn't feel real. It stretched 245 meters, 103 feet, with a diameter of 41 meters. Nothing else on Earth came close. 16 enormous gas cells filled its aluminum framework, holding nearly 200,000 cubic meters of lifting gas over 7 million cubic feet. The original plan was to use helium, which didn't burn. But the United States, the world's only major supplier, refused to export it, especially not to Nazi Germany. So the builders turned to hydrogen. It lifted more, made the ship faster, but everyone knew the danger it carried. One spark could turn the entire vessel into an inferno. Even with that risk, the airship was breathtaking. When it launched in March 1936, newspapers called it the pride of Germany. 2 full decks were dedicated to passengers, with 25 cabins, a luxurious dining room, a lounge, and even a pressurized smoking room. A marvel of engineering, carefully sealed so no flame could escape. Inside that room worked Max Schultz, the bartender hired specifically to ensure no lit cigarette ever crossed into unsafe areas. For a time, everything worked flawlessly. For Daimler-Benz diesel engines, pushed it through the sky at 125 kilometers per hour, about 78 miles per hour, crossing the Atlantic twice as fast as the fastest ocean liners. In 1936, it completed 17 round-trip crossings, carrying thousands safely. Passengers dined elegantly, walked along the wide gallery windows, and ordered drinks as if staying in a floating hotel. The Hindenburg was the first aircraft to offer reliable passenger service between Europe and the Americas, and for months, it seemed unstoppable. Still, the warnings never truly disappeared. Dr. Eckener insisted hydrogen was a risk no amount of skill could eliminate, but political forces ignored him. Captain Ernst Lehmann publicly expressed confidence, insisting hydrogen had served safely for years. But he privately remembered an American expert once telling him that he hoped Germany would never regret its decision. The words haunted him. By 1937, the ship was ready for a new season. For its first North America flight in May, Captain Max Prussian was in command. Captain Lehmann joined only as an observer, carrying deep grief from the recent death of his young son and a troubling letter he had received, a warning that a bomb would destroy the Hindenburg on a future flight. He kept the letter folded in his pocket as the ship left Frankfurt. 3 Luftwaffe officers were also on board, traveling in civilian clothes. Some later speculated that they were on a secret mission to stop a saboteur, though Major Hans Hugo Witt denied this in the United States inquiry. He claimed only that departure involved unusually strict baggage inspections after another anonymous warning. Once airborne, no one mentioned sabotage again. The Hindenburg lifted off from Frankfurt on May 3, 1937, carrying 36 passengers and 61 crew members. Among them was a sharp, hardworking 14-year-old cabin boy named Werner Franz. This was only his second trip to America. In his neat uniform, he spent his time cleaning, delivering coffee, and quietly trying to prove that he belonged. His older brother had helped him get the job, and he wanted to make sure no one regretted the choice. At dawn on May 6, the Hindenburg sped down the northeastern coast of the United States, racing to make up time. It should have landed that morning, but delays pushed the arrival into late afternoon. Spirits were high regardless. By mid-afternoon, passengers pressed against the windows as the ship floated over New York City. Werner later described the scene as an ocean of buildings, tiny people and cars moving far below. Around 4 p.m., the airship reached the Lakehurst Naval Air Station, only to find thunderstorms rolling through. Captain Prussian decided to wait, drifting the ship in a gentle loop along the Jersey shore. People on the ground stared in awe as the silver giant passed overhead. When the storms finally weakened around 6 p.m., Lakehurst radioed that it was safe to land. By 7 p.m., the Hindenburg returned for its approach. The plan was a flying moor landing, dropping ropes from about 200 feet so the ground crew could pull the ship down. The Germans had done it only a few times before, but Prussian felt confident. In the control car, final adjustments began. Hydrogen was vented from the forward cells, ballast released, and the ship slowly descended. At 7:21 p.m., mooring lines dropped. A brief sprinkle of rain fell. Inside the control car, Prussian and Lehman felt a small jolt when the port line tightened too much, but they thought it was nothing. They had no idea something far deadlier had already begun. 4 minutes later, at 7:25 p.m., the tragedy struck. Witnesses saw a strange flutter of the outer skin near the tail like a gas cell was sagging. A faint blue glow shimmered along the surface, static from the humid air. Then a muffled boom echoed inside the ship. Flames burst upward from the top of the Hindenburg, ahead of the upper tail fin. Commander Rosendahl said it looked like a bright orange flower blooming across the spine of the ship. Within seconds, the entire tail ignited. Radio reporter Herbert Morrison, calmly narrating moments earlier, suddenly screamed in horror. His cracking voice captured the disaster as he shouted that the ship was falling. His words, "Oh, the humanity," became immortal. Inside, chaos erupted instantly. One moment, the crew prepared to land. The next, the world turned into fire. Helmsman Helmut Lau was manning the lower fin when he heard the boom. Gas cells exploded around him. Flames surged through the framework. With the tail losing lift, the ship pitched upward at a sharp angle. People were thrown across rooms as smoke and heat filled the decks. Families struggled to escape. Some leaped from the promenade windows at the last moment. Many survived only because they jumped before the full collapse. In the chaos, some stories stood out. One was the death of Max Schultz, the devoted smoking room bartender. Minutes earlier, he had been polishing glasses. When the fire came, he was trapped. His remains were later found in the wreckage. When the ship hit the ground, explosions ripped through the hull. Yet, when the smoke thinned, survivors staggered, outburned, injured, but alive. Out of 97 on board, 62 survived. Only one ground crewman died. Among the miracle stories, none was more astonishing than that of young Werner Franz. At the moment the fire started, he was cleaning up dishes. A sudden thud shook the deck. Plates crashed, and the floor tilted sharply. When he stepped into the keel corridor, he saw a ball of fire racing toward him. The heat struck like a wave. As he scrambled upward on the steep catwalk, a ballast tank above him broke loose, releasing hundreds of gallons of water. The torrent blasted down, soaking him completely and shielding him from the heat. It was the only place in the ship where such a thing could have happened. Drenched and shocked awake, Werner remembered a small provisioning hatch nearby. He fought his way toward it, kicked it open, and jumped as the ship fell. Training told him to run against the wind, and that instinct saved him. The ship collapsed exactly where he would have been. He emerged from the wreck wet but alive. Other survivors carried their own memories. Major Hans-Hugo Witt was trapped under hot cables until a fellow officer dragged him to safety. Journalist Herbert Morrison's emotional broadcast shaped how the entire world remembered the disaster. And Captain Ernst Lehmann, gravely burned, whispered his last thoughts from his hospital bed. First, he called the cause Blitz. Later, as his condition worsened, he changed his mind. With quiet certainty, he said his final judgment, it must have been an infernal machine. On his deathbed, he believed it had been a bomb.